all right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world right now. Tonight, I have a special guest, a good friend of mine, someone that I've looked up to for a while now in this crypto space. Not only the crypto space, but things that are going on with our nation, with politics and things of that nature. A lot of the information that I send to you guys out there, you don't notice, but this is the man that I get it from, Mr. Rob Harris. A good friend of mine, good friend of mine, very intelligent man, very open book and transparent. And tonight we're just going to touch on some things that I know he has been talking about. I've been talking about. I'm pretty sure you've been seeing it on your timeline. So without further ado, I just want to introduce my friend Rob. Rob, if you could just, let everybody know who you are, just introduce yourself, and we can get into this, brother.
Sure. Yeah. Just briefly, in terms of cryptocurrency, I first got involved in the very end of 2013 after Bitcoin went up over 5,000%. And I'd heard about it the year before, but I didn't take it seriously. I thought it was a company that was trying to roll out its own digital currency. And I thought that'll never work. When it went up over 5,000%, I was kicking myself. And then that's when I got serious and I started studying what it was. I actually went to school to learn how to build computers. So once I found out about mining and that whole side of Bitcoin and blockchain, it piqued my interest. I built my first mining computer in December 2013. And I actually chose to mine Litecoin at that time because Litecoin.
Wow, Litecoin.
Yeah. Well, the research I'd done, Bitcoin had already become, there was a lot of competition. And Litecoin was a easier coin to mine. And so I did that for a couple months at my house in my basement. My wife thought I was crazy. I had these 4 graphic cards stacked on top of this computer. It's producing a ton of heat, making lots of noise. And she's asking, what the heck is this? And I'm trying to explain that it's mining this digital cryptocurrency called Litecoin. And I just kind of got this funny glazed eye look from her. But after a couple months, my problem was the room we had it in is a guest room. I had family that was going to come in the spring. And so it was just a short experiment. I ended up selling my mining rig on eBay and made some money that way. And then I converted my Litecoin to Bitcoin using an exchange at that time. This is all right around within weeks before Mt. Gox collapsed. And thankfully, I'd done enough of my own research to know you want to store it in cold storage. So I printed off a paper wallet from bitcoinpaperwallet.com. And I moved my Bitcoin onto there. I laminated it and I stuck it in a sock drawer. And that's where I let it sit until the end of 2016. 2017, I got a lot more involved. Also got involved with trading. And towards the end of 2017, all the way up till now, I got involved in education. And in fact, for a company, I've been helping make PowerPoint presentations and trying to help educate people on cryptocurrency and also in person. So I do events here in Seattle, or I've got some friends here that aren't very tech savvy that I've personally have helped set up wallets for. And, I just became passionate about teaching people how to possess their own cryptocurrencies and how to trade it. So
awesome. Yeah. And I'm glad that you kind of stuck the emphasis on that, because I feel as though, and I'm pretty sure you can agree with this, that I think that's the biggest hurdle right now within this space is the education, the lack of knowledge and understanding exactly what blockchain technology is, what cryptocurrency is, how it works, and all of the things that go with it, mining and all these things like that. So you're definitely an asset to the cryptocurrency space. And I just want to condemn and thank you for, educating the masses. Even myself, I always go to your page and I learn something new. I go back, research it. So I appreciate everything that you do for the crypto space and everything that you do to help individuals understand this better, because I really feel as though once we understand what it is and how it works, I think, that's when the mass adoption will really, really kick in. So again, brother, I appreciate you on that. So again, ladies and gentlemen, again, I told you we have a treat, and like I said, Rob is a lot more diverse in a lot of the things that we're going to talk about than I am, and that's why I wanted to bring him on here. So this is probably your first time seeing him. wondering who he is. By the way, go follow him on Facebook. He puts out a lot of good content out there, especially dealing with cryptocurrency. He puts a lot of good content out there. So some things that we're going to talk about tonight. The first thing I want to talk about, as you know, recently this year, the IMF came out and they really didn't talk too much about the usual things that they talk about during these conferences. This year's topic was talking about, moving to a more sound currency or a more sound money. And, one of the directors of Russia, who is pretty much like in context of what we have, like the Federal Reserve spokesman, but she's pretty much the same thing as that for Russia. And some of the things she was talking about were cryptocurrencies and how, Russia is looking at ways to develop different cryptocurrencies and how they're going to use it within, trading across bilateral trade agreements and things of that nature. So what are some things that you know about and some things that you understand how the world, not just the United States, but how other nations are starting to look and understand what cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is?
Well, I know that the countries that are currently or that have recently been hurt the most by fiat currency, you look at Zimbabwe, they've recently come out with their own cryptocurrency. That's my understanding. Also, Venezuela, I know as of, I believe it was March of last year, they came out with their own cryptocurrency. And I believe that this is going to be a trend that we start to see popping up all around the world, including eventually here in the United States. I don't know exactly how that's going to look because I still think there's got to be a paper representation of our currency. But I believe right around the corner globally, we're going to see this transition with our monetary system. And the blockchain just makes sense. If you want to send a wire to somebody right now, you got to, get out of bed, get dressed, get in the car, drive down to the bank, fill out a bunch of paperwork where you could just get your phone and not even get out of bed, just pull up somebody's, right now you got to get their Bitcoin address and then, or whatever it is, and then send it to them. But we're right on the verge of all these digital wallets that are going to make it a lot more easier where you just got to have somebody as a contact. And in fact, I hear Telegram either has just recently or is just about to launch it sounds like my understanding they're merging with PundiX.
Yes, and so, they actually launched it. They actually, I want to say,
so it is launched.
Yeah, it is launched. I got the message on my Telegram. It's also on the X wallet. They have integrated now with Telegram, and you can now send it, send payments and things of that nature through that. So yeah, you're exactly right, bro.
So you just got to have, I guess, their phone number as a contact, and you just pull up their name. And if you're going to send Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever you're sending to them, you don't need their wallet address. You just need their contact information in the Telegram app. Yes. That's huge. So that's what we've been waiting for. It's got to be simple for the average person to just download an app. If they want to purchase Bitcoin or whatever to get into that digital cryptocurrency world, it's got to be simple. And so that's what we've been witnessing over the past couple of years. And I believe we're about 18 months away from the beginning of mass adoption. So we're the early adopters still. But mass adoption, when that kicks in, I just hope everybody's ready for it because it's going to be wild.
Yeah. But before we came on here, me and you were talking about that, and I said, I look at the coin market cap daily, and I just see, 300 billion, and I'm like, are we really ready for trillions of dollars just to come into this space? And I mean, it's already a disruptor, but when you have that type of money that comes into something as powerful and something as resilient as blockchain technology, like you said, it's going to be like a roller coaster, man. It's going to be a wild ride because a lot of the things that we do on a regular basis, the way that we live our lives, the way that we conduct commerce, the way that we do a lot of things, is going to change. It's going to change rapidly. And for the most part, as as an educator of this cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, right now a lot of people just aren't ready to just switch over right now. But I think it's going to be one of those things where you know, how snail mail was, you know, overtaken by email. It just, you know, you had to, because no one was willing to wait 7 to 10 days to get a letter, when I could just, you know, grab a keyboard, you know, and have a email address. So yeah, brother, you're exactly right. It's going to be a wild ride. It's going to be a wild ride for real.
I think if we go back to 2017, you know, and if you remember around Thanksgiving when Bitcoin was shooting up past 10,000, and then into December, 11, 12, 14, 17, $19,000, we weren't ready then. And if you were trying to purchase Bitcoin on many of these exchanges, the whole network was bogged down. It was slow. Confirmations were taking a long time. The fees were outrageous. But since then, that's what we've been seeing since then is preparing this market for that mass adoption and making sure that we're ready for it. But I think what it's going to be, people are going to get that push into this cryptocurrency market. And what I mean by that, you know, look around the world where Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is already a lot more popular than it is in the United States. And the main common denominator for the reason why it's so popular is the fact that their currency is inflating. It's losing value. They don't have that trust in it. For many Americans, we still, as a whole, have a trust for the dollar. But I think that trust is going to be really tested over the next 12 to 18 months. You know, I mean, I don't want to sound like a doom and gloomer, but, you know, we've got another major bubble here, you know, and it's starting to look a lot like 2008 all over again. And you and I were talking before we started recording this live, but I think when we have the next repeat of 08, there's not going to be another bank bailout. And people need to find an exit somewhere else to go to that they can trust. And cryptocurrency is going to be ready. Exactly. So when that happens,
it's ready for the torch to be handed to it. It's primed and ready.
And that's what it is, because let's be honest, we're at the very tail end of this fiat currency system. Most currency cycles last 40 to 50 years. You know, the last time we had a major currency change in our country was 1971 when we got off the gold standard. And fiat currencies, if you go to Google and type in what is the average lifespan of a fiat currency, it's 27 years. We're, 48 years right now? We're way past that. And 11 years ago, they had to give it CPR just to buy a little bit more time.
Right.
But I don't think it's a coincidence that cryptocurrency, that Bitcoin specifically, about 2 months after the crash in 2008, the white paper came out, and in January, it was up and running. Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, who created it, but I think that there's been a plan for a long time in the works to counter this fiat Federal Reserve system that we've been under. And right now, it's a brand new train track that's being built parallel to our old economy. And I think we're about to witness a shift. So with that being said, there's $300 billion in the whole cryptocurrency market.
Right.
Wait until there's trillions. You know, when the CTO market takes off, STOs, security token offering, when that whole market takes off, we got trillions of dollars waiting to get into this market.
Right. And for those that don't know what STOs are, could you elaborate on that, you know, for my audience out there who don't know what they are?
So like an IPO, but they're securities, and it'll be regulated by the SEC. And I believe Coinbase is going to be not the only, but it's going to be one of the big epicenters for STOs. IPOs, when did that start to take off? 1970s, I believe, when the whole IPO market started booming.
That's when Jordan Belfort worked for the Wall Street. You know, that's when he really got involved, you know, starting to learn. But if you go back to late 70s, early 80s, that's how he came into fame with that, even though he was selling bogus ones. But yeah, you know, So yeah.
But the average business today does not even have a chance to ever participate in their own IPO. You got to have $100+ million valuation. It's just for the big players. The STO market will be something that'll be within reach for many different size companies, and so a smaller company, if they wanted to participate and have their own STO, they could.
Indeed. So, and this kind of runs right into what we're about to talk about next. This $22.5 trillion debt that we have. So many people. I just feel as though a lot of people are not taking it serious. A lot of people don't think it's real. But to caveat what you were just talking about, the market cap. How do you foresee, the mass adoption, along with, the different, I don't want to say the different things problems that are happening within our economy globally, not just in the United States, but how do you see that fitting in helping to eliminate that debt or even suppress it? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah. So to start off, it's impossible to ever pay off all the debt, because if you did, there'd be no money left. There'd be no currency. Our money is debt. And to illustrate that, usually I like to use a $100 bill. I don't have on my wallet. I got a dollar bill. But pretend this is 100.
Right.
And go back to 1913 when the federal government borrowed the very first $100 from the Federal Reserve System. Our government, and most people don't realize this, the Federal Reserve System is a private bank. And so when our federal government borrowed the very first $100 from the Federal Reserve, they had to pay that back plus interest. So let's say that interest is 10%. So this is the very first $100 bill that has ever been borrowed. There's no other currency in circulation yet. How are they going to pay $100 plus an extra 10 to cover that 10% interest?
Right.
The answer is they can't. The only thing they can do is continue to borrow more money from the Federal Reserve System. And that's how we have grown into this massive debt. And, I posted a question on my Facebook page a week ago. I said, can somebody explain the dollar, aka the Federal Reserve note, to me in a way where it does not sound like a scam? Can you explain it to me in a way where it doesn't sound like a scam?
I mean, you can't.
You can't. When you really sit down and someone tries to explain it to you, like, yeah, that sounds like a pyramid scheme.
Right.
And essentially, that's what it is. Our government's borrowing money from a private bank at interest. And that's the only reason why we have income tax. 1913 was the same year the income tax passed. And I like to point people to 1963. In fact, June 4th, 1963, John F. Kennedy signed an executive order, 11110, which allowed the U.S. Treasury to create silver certificates. So money that was backed by silver, which would have been interest-free. That means our government's not borrowing it from some third party. They actually possess the silver to back up the currency that they're putting out in circulation. Unfortunately,
sound money, in other words, correct?
Sound money. And technically the dollar was backed by gold at that time too. The only problem with the dollar, just as I explained that borrowing the money from a private bank, is the fact that it had interest attached to it. If our own government creates its own money and it's backed by its own reserves, there's no interest attached to it, which then means there's no need for income tax. Reagan told us in the 1980s that 100% of our income tax goes towards paying the interest that our government owes to the private banks that they've been borrowing money from for over 100 years. So when it starts to sink in that you're working 3, maybe 4 months out of the year for a bunch of private bankers that don't live in the United States, that don't have our country's best interest in mind, it really should piss you off.
Right. I mean, I guess the what we had talked about earlier, daggone mosquito, but we had talked about earlier, when you talk to the average person about this, they look at you like you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Because again, we have been programmed in, Mike Maloney and, Peter Schiff, who I listen to, they say it all the time. It's called the sleight of hand. You know what I'm saying? It's a sleight of hand that they use, to kind of bamboozle us, to make us overlook what's really happening, behind the scenes with, the with our currency and what's really going on. So the 22 and a half, 20, some people say 23, but whatever. Like you said, it will never be repaid. It will never be repaid, and we're just going to keep borrowing. I want to hear about. I posted something last week, something about the president saying something about he wants to see inflation take off like a rocket ship. Keep printing more money. But nevertheless, it's no way that we can repay that when we owe interest on top of it. So it's like you're taking out a payday loan that's already at 18%. You miss one payment, so now it's 36%. You see, it's like it's just keeps going and going.
I think what we're witnessing right now is the equivalent of somebody, a family that knows they're about to go bankrupt. What does a family do if they know that they're about to go bankrupt? They go out and they get a bunch of credit cards and they start charging those cards, and they buy that laptop that they couldn't afford before, or they go out and purchase a car if they can do that. Right. They rack up their debt, and then they file for bankruptcy. Right now we've got all this money which we can create out of thin air. If our government already knows that we're at the very tail end of this current monetary system, then why not? Why not create another $2 trillion out of thin air and build up our infrastructure? Because we know we're not going to pay it back. It sounds,
it's bogus.
Yeah, but why not? And then press that reset button and start all over. But I like to go back to that 1913 to 1933 period, just so people get an idea what happened. The Federal Reserve System was sold to us because there was a crash in 1907, and everybody was blaming the local banks, and so they thought the Federal Reserve System would help stabilize the currency and build trust. But number one, I think people actually thought it was federal, and I think they thought it had reserves, and it doesn't have either. It's not federal, and it has no reserves. But it only took 20 years for our country to go bankrupt. And what happened after 1913, as we got into the 1920s, they made credit so easy for people to get, to where if you wanted to buy stock, you only needed 10% to put down on that stock, and the banks would loan the other 90%. And people were making ridiculous money in the 20s, which is why they call it the Roaring 20s. People were getting wealthy and rich, and there was a middle class in our country that was starting to gain political relevance, and they were starting to get that political power. And by 1929, you had all these big Wall Street guys and the central bankers, the people, the JP Morgans of that time, and those people, they quietly exited the stock market in October of 1929, and they allowed the entire thing, the whole stock market, to crash. And when it crashed, all those people who had taken out loans to purchase that stock, which was now worth pennies on the dollar, they couldn't afford to make those payments anymore. So they lost their farms, their land, their property. It was one of the greatest robberies of our country's history. And then on top of that, in 1933, our government had basically officially went bankrupt, and Roosevelt signed an executive order on May 1st, which made it a crime if you did not turn in your gold. If you didn't turn in your gold to the federal government, you were faced with up to 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine.
Yeah.
Now, they were paying for it at $20 an ounce, but for those that sold it at $20 an ounce, 2 years later, it was worth about $40. So it was one of the greatest robberies of our country's history. But on top of that, in 33, the government turned us, we the people, into collateral on the debt. And essentially, we've become debt slaves to this monetary system, which is why we work 3 to 4 months out of the year for a bunch of private bankers. All this happened long before you and I, any of us, were even born.
Right.
And I believe we're finally getting to the tail end of that system, and we're going to finally return back to sound money, not just in the United States, but around the world, because the same people that own the Federal Reserve System, they own every central bank around the world except for 8 countries. So it's fascinating when you start looking into the monetary system, the dollar, the history of it, the fact that this is the third central bank our country has had. The last one was under Andrew Jackson. He was the last president to take down the central banking system in this country, and that was the 1830s. And on his deathbed, it was reported that he said his greatest achievement was the fact that he defeated the central banks. And our country didn't have another central bank system from the 1830s until 1913. So it's all through history, these systems keep popping up, and they're designed to take wealth out of countries. And they've done this to Zimbabwe and all these other countries around the world. In Zimbabwe, they went in there, they bought up, the people running the country. And then eventually these people kept borrowing money from their central banking system to where it inflated. And then the central bank said, okay, Zimbabwe, you owe us all this money. How are you going to pay us back? Oh, I know. We're going to take over all your natural resources. It's the same scheme. It's a blueprint. And they've done this from country to country to country.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad you touched on that, man, because, again, the hidden secrets of money, Mike Maloney talks about that, how the central banking system, it robs the people of its wealth because, it's not sound. So when it's not sound, that means they can keep printing more of it, which ultimately the mathematical equation shows they're printing more and you're getting less and less and less, meaning of your purchasing power. Your assets is taking more to purchase more assets. And then the sleight of hand on the back end of that, you got your taxes, you got, even like you said, with the crash, the way that they designed that crash, because me personally, I think they're designed at times. I think crashes are designed. So like the 2008 crash, you had, all these bogus loans. That's why the housing industry suffered the most out of that crash, because it was, bogus loans. They were giving loans to anybody, any and everybody. Bad credit, don't matter. Here you go. You can afford this $300,000-$400,000 house. And when excuse my language, when shit hit the fan, these people were forced to, go into foreclosure and all types of stuff because of the corruptness of this system that was put in place to, I know you need this, so we're going to charge you interest, and you just keep printing more. So, I'm glad you touched on that, bro. And that kind of goes into the next question and the next topic that I want to talk about, gold. Let's talk about gold. I mean, I'm an advocate of it, a big fan of gold, but I'm an even more bigger fan of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. So I just want to ask you, first of all, how do you look at gold? And do you see a place for gold in cryptocurrency? As we know, we have a couple coins out there. You have the KBC, you have DigiX, you have these multiple coins that are backed by gold. Do you think that this can help the situation which we talked about, the debt and, talking about nations trying to find that sound money? Do you think that this is the answer, or, what are some of your thoughts on that, bro?
Yeah, I think it is the, now I like the company, the Karatbar company. So I don't want this to come the wrong way. The only concern I would have with it is the fact that governments around the world, if they see a problem with it, that's what they're up against. And to be a private company up against a government,
right? And
you're not in the best position.
Let's just make that clear right now. What he's saying, and by no way is he, throwing shade or anything like that.
Not at all.
He's just saying that, Karatbars is about this big, and you have governments that are about this big. So if they have an issue with that, that's what they're going up against. They're going up
against.
That's
what they're up against.
Yeah, that's what you're up against. So
if they cross their T's, dot their I's, and do everything right. And I know they've been around since about 2011. In fact, I went to a local coin store recently, and I saw a Karatbar, the card with the gold actually in it there, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, I saw that. And then I talked to the coin dealer there, and I said, that company has their own cryptocurrency now, right? He's like, they do? I said, yes, they do. So I want to make it clear. I actually really like what the Karatbar company is doing. I just think that the only threat that they have, because they're global, would be the different countries around the world that they go into. But as long as they do everything on up and up, they should be fine.
Right.
Now, I support because I mean, we got to be realistic. I know people want to keep government out of this. They're not going to stay out of cryptocurrency. Let's be realistic.
Right.
I support countries, including, I mean, our own, the United States, having their own cryptocurrency that's backed by gold. And I would prefer that it would be backed by gold. And so once you have a big country like that steps in and actually backs up their currency with something sound, I think that's going to be, well, I don't even have to say it. It's going to be a big deal. But that's what I see down the road. And it'll be a hybrid. I think we still have a need for paper currency. Trying to explain to my grandmother the blockchain and how to get it onto your smartphone and things like that, that's not going to work. Right. So there needs to be a combination of things. But with the blockchain, it takes away the need of the current outdated banking system we have. If I could just avoid having to go to my local bank, stand in line, and then talk to the teller. If I could just do it all from my phone, I would love it. And then to have a currency from our own country that's actually sound, not some fiat that's backed by nothing, that's not even owned by our own government. It'll be a big deal once we make that transition. But I see that's what's coming. I have no doubt that's what's coming.
Indeed. And I think, nations, and most importantly, the people, at least the woke ones, the people see that we need sound money because, 10 years ago, you took $20 to Walmart, you could practically fill your grocery cart. That same $20 didn't change. Only thing changed maybe the ink and the artwork on it. But that same $20 right now, if you go to Walmart, you might be able to put a couple in the hand buggy. So the people, okay, the people, us, are the ones that are saying, we need something better because it's no reason why, we as one of the strongest nations in this world, should be in the situation we're in. Households shouldn't be in the situations they're in. And, it's rough when you got, my sister, she has, has a degree. And, it's hard that she's went to school for all these years and, 7, 8, 9 years later, she's finally getting her breakthrough and she's not making what that piece of paper says that you see what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's bigger than just, you seeing Floyd Mayweather and all these guys throwing stuff around. But when you really think about the monetary system, we have to have sound money. If you don't have sound money, there's no organization, there's no discipline, there's no order within, nations. And because that's what sound money does. It keeps the powers to be accountable because you can't just, it's a standard. You can't just keep printing as much as you want. And that's where I love cryptocurrency because regardless what people may feel about Bitcoin and, it's not backed by anything, but let's just be honest here. It's a cap on it. You see what I'm saying? There's a cap. You can't just keep printing Bitcoin. Once 21 million are mined, there will be no more. So now the demand goes even higher. Those that have, Satoshis may not have a full Bitcoin, but now those Satoshis are worth a lot more than, if you could just print as many Bitcoin as you wanted. So, that's the beauty of blockchain. And it's a trustless, it's transparent as hell. There is no hacking. There is no, there is no funny stuff going around. And what we talked about earlier, Rob, I was talking about, a lot of people just right now are hearing about cryptocurrency as far as the monetary value. But let's talk about some of the things that it's doing. I know here in Texas, right here in Austin, we have a title company that closed 3 transactions in the past 3 years on the blockchain with cryptocurrency, meaning that the contract was initiated, it was bought, it was sold, and it was documented all on the blockchain, meaning that a person purchased the normal way, like you would purchase a home, whether it be through a realtor or through a private entity, but they purchased real estate, okay, with cryptocurrency and closed on it and have the deed and everything in their name. So there is a case for cryptocurrency outside of the monetary policy. I mean, the monetary sense of it. You got what else do we have out here? We got logistics. You got a lot of companies that are using it now to ensure that they're that their supplies and everything is in order. Lawyers, big law firms are starting to look at it now, that where, individuals that have trust and deeds and wills that they can't be destroyed or they can't be, altered with. They're using it and putting it on smart contracts. So, I see this thing, like you said, when you start having that institutional and your, currency start to come into the coin market cap and things of that nature, it's so much more that's going to evolve derived from the blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, that it's going to be a wild ride, man. It's going to be like, it's going to be like, Great Adventure, Six Flags on steroids. It's going to be beautiful, man. It's going to be a beautiful thing. And you, myself, and us that, been talking about this, and, early adopters and advocates of this, it's going to be a beautiful thing to see and know that our children and grandchildren will be the ones that's going to carry that and be like, hey, I remember my great grandfather, my grandfather, they were the ones talking about it. And, it's just going to be a beautiful thing, bro.
We're living in an amazing time. I was born in 1982, and I used to think, I wish I was an adult in the 80s where I could have taken advantage of buying Microsoft and or got involved with Apple and all these tech companies early on. But no, what we're involved with now in this cryptocurrency space is so much bigger than those tech companies back in that time, because we're dealing with digital assets and an internet of value is what all this cryptocurrency is creating. And talking about property, being able to buy and close on a house and have that be recorded on a blockchain. We're going to reach a time where you could buy a house and 24 hours later, it's yours. But the bigger picture of that is, you look globally around the world, you've got some leader in some other country where somebody says, hey, I've got this piece of paper that says my family owns this land. And the leader of that country says, well, our government database says that my cousin's sister's nephew, whoever, actually owns this property. So I'm sorry. But if it's on a blockchain, it's undisputable of who that land and who that property belongs to.
Right.
So from that perspective as well, it's
elections. I know you're big on politics too, brother.
Oh, to be able to vote. I forget which dictator said this, but it's not who votes that matters. It's who counts the vote that matters. So to be able to vote with the blockchain, that's going to be a big deal soon in our lives. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be in place by 2020.
Unfortunately, yeah. Right.
But by 2024 and beyond, it certainly could be, and it should be. Not just in the United States, but globally. That's how voting should be done. And that's going to return power back to the people when you can keep your own government honest. Right. So we've got exciting times ahead of us.
Exciting times, man. And I want my Facebook audience to understand that. I was told. I remember you said something when I first got started. It was you were talking to Brandon Ivy about something. You said something along the lines of like, we should embrace innovation. We shouldn't run from it, because so many things derive from innovation. And you kind of gave the analogy of the going from the horse and buggy to the automobile, from the automobile to where we at now, from snail mail to email, things of that nature, from analog phones to now we have pretty much a laptop in our hand to smartphones. So it's so much that's deriving from this technology, which I feel, and I always will say this, and I say it all the time, the most resilient, because there are governments, there are so many things that try to derail and deface and devalue the blockchain and cryptocurrency. It just keeps coming back, and when it comes back even stronger. Remember when the whole when China was having that big, pretty much that ban on cryptocurrency, it was like it was hurting the market at that time. And just shortly after that, I want to say that was like the end of 2016, we had that massive bull run in 2017 with Bitcoin, shooting to all-time highs. And I mean, even some alts went from all-time highs. I made a post the other day. You had coins like, XLM, you had coins like ICX. These coins were pennies on a dollar. And it just showed that, we're not going anywhere. Cryptocurrency and blockchain is not going anywhere. So I tell everyone out there, and again, reach out to Rob, find out what his education is about. I try to educate people because I think that is the biggest roadblock into mass adoption, and that's going, like you said, that push, because so many people just don't understand it. It looks confusing, but trust me, it's been very good to me. It's been good to my family for the past going on 6 years now. And for really the past 3 years, it's really been really good to me. So and it can do the same for you. It's not here to hurt you. Again, people do bad with cash. We just seen $1 billion worth of dope money, seized. Same thing will happen with cryptocurrency. You'll have people to use it for bad things. But I really think that the good outweighs the bad with cryptocurrency, because so much good, and it fills so many voids and things that we have as far as the monetary system, our healthcare, voting, all types of things that we have issues with. Cryptocurrency and blockchain definitely fills that void and makes it that much better. So that's just my take on it, brother.
Oh, no, I agree. And again, for the first time, we can become our own bankers. And that's what I'm trying to get people to wrap their mind around. We're creatures of habit. And that was a problem with Mt. Gox. When people started to get their own Bitcoin, instead of taking the responsibility of having their own private key, they instantly wanted to have some exchange like Mt. Gox to hold on to it for them. And then we all know what happened there. They went under and people lost a lot of money. It was over $1 billion back in 2014 when that collapsed. And then there's been a couple of exchanges since then. The same thing has happened. So you've got to have a Trezor. My recommendation is download Exodus onto your wallet, and then use a Trezor or a Ledger.
Yeah.
The neat thing, I don't know if Ledger works with Exodus yet, but Trezor does. I don't know if you know this yet, but if you plug in Trezor when you have Exodus open, it'll actually allow you to sync up your Trezor with your Exodus software, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's dope. But I definitely have Exodus. I use it a lot. That's one of my primary wallets. And then if I'm not trading, it's definitely coming off the exchange and it's going into my Exodus wallet, because I just love Exodus. But yeah, so definitely, bro, like you said, protecting, treat it just like you treat your ATM card when you go to the bank, because it is money. You have to, so many people I know you have too. You talk to people every day, or hey, I lost. If people would just have the conscious mind that this is just like your bank card, you have to respect your private key. Be very secure. Cryptocurrency comes from the word cryptography, which is secure. Being in the military, retired, I worked with signal. I was a signaleer, so I worked in this type of field, and we took that very seriously. Like, we took that seriously more serious sometimes than our weapon. If you lost a key that went to a SIC, that went into the communications where we had to talk in combat, that was just like losing your weapon. We took that very seriously. So we should treat cryptocurrency and blockchain and respect it in the same aspect. Protect your digital assets, because that's what they are. That's exactly what they are. Let's see. I know we got some questions here, Rob. We want to shut this down here in a minute. It says, do you get charged a fee when you move your coins into a Trex IO? I don't know if you can see that, brother. I'm not a Trezor. So he's basically asking.
Trezor, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he's asking. Juan Martinez, good friend of mine, is asking, do you get charged a fee when you move your coins to your Trezor or from your Exodus to your Trezor? So the transaction.
Well, yeah. You're just moving it from one Bitcoin address to another. So you have that mining fee. But that's it.
And just as you know, brother, I'll gladly pay that fee to know that my coins are protected. You know what I'm saying? I'll pay that all day long. The fee, it is what it is. I mean, when you use your debit card and it's not a Bank of America debit card machine or anything, you're going to pay that fee, right? But you need that cash. So that's just how I look at it.
In fact, I only use the exchange to make that conversion. And as soon as I switch it to whatever coin I'm switching it to, I withdraw it the same day. I never want to store any cryptocurrency on Binance or any exchange, because I'll be honest, I think over 90% do not have enough cryptocurrency to back up what is showing in your back office. And I think that might be what happened to Mt. Gox, because you got to remember in 2013, Bitcoin went up over 5,000%. So then big wells were starting to cash out their Bitcoin out of Mt. Gox. And I don't think they had enough Bitcoin to keep up with the demand of all the withdrawals. Right. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with any exchange, even Coinbase. Right. I think we're going to reach a time where I know there was a push for proof of keys, which means if you have Bitcoin in Coinbase, which means they possess your key, they need to be able to prove on the blockchain, hey, your 2 Bitcoins are right here. In fact, here's a link which shows exactly where your Bitcoins are. So centralized exchanges need to start doing that. And I think at some point they'll have to, but you don't have to wait for that. Just withdraw it, keep it in Exodus, keep it locked up with Trezor, and you'll be fine. One other thing I want to add, though, before I know we're going to wrap this up, keep an eye on privacy coins. I don't know how governments are going to treat privacy coins going into the future, but the only issue I see is, as a business owner, if somebody gives me their Bitcoin wallet and I send them Bitcoin, I can pull up their Bitcoin address and I can see all the transactions going in and out. And maybe I'm a competitor, and that gives me some valuable information about my competition that they might not want me to know. So if they had a Monero wallet or some type of privacy coin, I think that's going to be a high demand as we move into the future. And as a business, it's important. I don't want all my customers to be able to see how much activity my business is doing. So I'm just planting that seed. Keep an eye on whether it's Monero or any of these other coins that are coming up. The only wild card is how the governments are going to react, because I think they like Bitcoin because it is transparent. But as a business owner, or just as an individual, we want privacy as well.
Exactly. And Monero is one of the coins that I recently started mining. I didn't know it was mineable until I did my research with my good friend Joshua Coleman. But Monero is one of the ones that has always been very consistent as far as privacy. So just something to think about. We had a question here. We had brother Al-Rahim said, how safe is cold and warm storage in exchanges? I don't kind of understand that. When he says cold and warm storage.
Well, cold storage, I guess, for an exchange that's trying to keep it within their own. Okay, so I guess the risk of cold storage in a centralized exchange would be, there was an example last year where up in Canada, the owner of a cryptocurrency exchange died. And apparently he was the only person who had the private keys, had access to the private keys, because of course, if you're the owner of an exchange and you've got over $100 million worth of cryptocurrency in your company's possession, who do you trust to also have access to those private keys? You're probably not going to want to trust anybody. Right. But this guy died, and I don't know how this whole thing wrapped up, but that was the risk. Just keep in mind that anytime you don't have the private key and someone else has it in their possession, anything could happen. Anything, even of the best looking exchanges, even Coinbase, something could happen that's out of your control. And if suddenly you can't log into Coinbase and make a withdrawal, you're kind of SOL. So I don't think anything's going to happen in Coinbase. Let me put that out for the record. I think out of all of them, they're probably the least likely to have any problems. They're based out of San Francisco. But even with them, I don't trust them enough to store my cryptocurrency with them. I buy through them or sell my coins through them.
I have zero on Coinbase. Even with Binance, I love Binance, but they recently had a hiccup. But CZ, who is the owner, he also said that it's okay because they have the insurance. If they get hacked or whatever, they have. But still, nevertheless, I was told a long time ago when I first got into this, especially as a trader, if you're not trading it, get it off the exchange. Yes. That's just what I learned. So if I'm not trading it, I only keep a little bit of Bitcoin on there. and whatever I'm trading, I move it to my Exodus. Once I'm done with it, I move it to my Exodus. But if I know I'm about to trade or I'm about to do, you know, a trade or anything, I send it there ahead of time. Once I'm done, it's coming off the exchange. I have nothing on any exchanges, nothing. So just, you know, be secure of that. So, but yeah, Rob Harris, you know, the man, the myth, the legend. I really appreciate you, brother. You know, I really appreciate you, man. We can do this again. Just let the people know, you know, how they can find you. You got a YouTube channel, Facebook, you know, any, you know, email, so people can talk to you.
Yeah, YouTube is easy. It's just youtube.com/Rob Harris. And then I got a personal website, robharris.net. And those are the two best ways to find me.
Awesome. Well, again, brother, I appreciate you. Thank everyone for tuning in tonight. I know it's kind of late, but you know, he's on the West Coast, so he's hours behind me here in the Central and on the East Coast. So I had to accommodate, you know, his time and his expertise, but I appreciate it. Thank you guys again. Thank you, Rob, man. I hope we can do this again, brother. And again, man, I appreciate everything you do for the community, for the space, and educating individuals, man. I wish you nothing but success and nothing but great things here in the future. And, you know, let's buckle up and go for the next 20, 30 years, brother.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
All right, brother. Be easy, man. Y'all have a great night.
See you. Hey, everyone. I want to make this quick disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. Always do your due diligence, especially when it comes to cryptocurrency. Never invest any money into cryptocurrency that you're not willing to lose. These markets are unpredictable. They go up, they go down. And other than that, if you're enjoying my videos, please feel free to share them. And I look forward to making the next one.